Hello and welcome to another Fortnight on the Isle, my bi-weekly update series. Can you believe how quickly the past 2 weeks have gone by? I personally cannot. I swear I just made one of these videos like 5 days ago, not even a full 2 weeks ago. So like time's just been melting so far, and really that's kind of a trend for 2024 as a whole. I think time really has melted for me. It's nearly 2025. Like we're just a couple of months away, quite frankly, from being in 2025. I know it's closer to 3 months than it is 2 months, but like we're coming up right on it, and it definitely feels weird. Maybe it's just because I've been working a heck of a lot the last couple weeks, most especially on a lot of video stuff, and that kind of became a little bit of a monotonous lifestyle thing for me. I don't know, but what I do know is that I've been feeling good. I kind of hinted at the fact that I've been very productive. The writing that I've been doing this fortnight has been great, which we will get to. Other related updates are going great right now, which again, we will get to. Everything I need to talk about in this video, I will get to eventually. So let's start off, of course, with the bi-weekly reading, which is also going pretty good in its own right. First of all, it's mostly going to be the same update as I had 2 weeks ago because I just continued Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan and Witchy Eye by DJ Butler. These two books have been going pretty okay. I did have a little bit of a spurt in Lord of Chaos a couple weeks ago that had probably the sloggiest portion of the Wheel of Time as a whole for me so far. Nothing super egregious or unforgivable, but definitely very noticeable for me. The reading that I've done so far this weekend, it's just Friday when I'm recording this, and that means I've only got one day of reading this weekend. I'm actually a tiny bit ahead of where I need to be for this weekend, so that always bodes well. It's usually when I'm struggling to read a little bit of the book, when it's a little bit slower, that I feel like I'm falling behind, and that is definitely not the case at this point right now for the weekend anyway, which yeah, I've been continuing to just read on Mondays, basically Friday through Sundays, my Wheel of Time reading, and then I just push through this on Mondays. I am a little over halfway through this. I am actually on track to have it finished by the end of October, surprisingly enough. And I'm certainly hoping that that ends up being the case. It's been going quite well. I would say the last handful of chapters have been a little bit slower. This middle section of the book has been a little bit slower, less like fully engaging than the beginning of the book was for me. But then again, the first few chapters of the book were also a little bit harder to push through. But there's a ton of material here that I'm really enjoying. There's a lot of potential that this has to grow and be incredible in the series to come. I would still say I'm very much enjoying myself with the book, but I'm looking forward to seeing how the climax goes, especially since, a couple friends or a couple acquaintances and various Discord servers have also said that the climax of this book kind of goes really hard, especially in comparison to the rest of the book. So I'm looking forward to that. It reads a lot quicker than it seemed like it was at the beginning, and it also reads a lot quicker than Wheel of Time does for sure. So having these as counterparts to each other has been kind of nice in its own way. But what has also been a fantastic counterpart to both of these is having started the manga Monster in this fortnight. I started with volume 1 a couple weeks ago. I've only read through volumes 1 and 2. I'm holding up volume 3 here. I haven't quite read this yet, but I'm coming up on it probably in the near future. Definitely these two novels are my priority for the rest of the month, but I do think I can get through another one, maybe even 2 volumes of Monster by the end of the month, which is a little bit more than my projected, or let's say anticipated, schedule, quote unquote, for Monster would end up being when I talked about it in the last monthly reading wrap up in TBR. But the first couple volumes were great. Volume 1 especially was amazing, even though it had a couple of things that seemed a little bit stereotypical as far as certain we'll say like villains, antagonists really go. There's been a couple stereotypical things, and volume 2 definitely had the same thing going on in a couple places. But volume 1 overall was incredible, despite some of the things that felt a little bit more played out or a little bit simplistic. I found it emotionally engaging, super investing as well, just amazing. Volume 2 wasn't quite as hype for me, but I've heard that volumes 2 and 3 are a little bit rougher while the story starts to come together a little bit, and then from there to the end is a little bit more breakneck pace. But volume 2 still had plenty of really good stuff in it as well. A little bit more leaning into some of the stereotypical problems, and a couple of the villain arcs, we'll say the primary villain arc that it seemed like was going on for especially the back half of volume 2 just kind of felt a little ham-fisted. I didn't really love what was going on there, but I came to learn after the fact that it was based on historical context as well from the time that the story takes place in, so I appreciated it a little bit more after the fact. Even so, volume 1 is where it's at for me, and I hope to continue on to volume 3 pretty soon. But that was the bi-weekly reading. What about the bi-weekly writing? Well, I said it was going great before, and that is absolutely the case. For the Reign of Ash, I don't actually have the document pulled up right now, but I can go ahead and do that real quick. Here it is, daily tracking. Let's switch to desktop. Yeah, I would say my weekly or bi-weekly writing went pretty well. So there were a few days at the end of September here in the last fortnight that didn't get any writing done because I was busy doing a lot of video stuff at that point. And then I came back around and got by far the most that I've written all year in one day, 2,000 words done on the last day of September. So that was in the last couple of weeks. And then so far this fortnight in October anyway, this first like week and a half of the month, I haven't gotten quite as much progress in there, but a lot of that is because I was just finishing up the first outline in the Hermit of the Forest trilogy, and right now I'm starting the second outline in the trilogy, working on that right now, and it's getting a little bit harder to get into, but I do have that all plotted and fixed up for the most part, which means that right now, at least in this early stage, about 5,300 words for the first outline in the trilogy. I know the word target says 10,000. Not all of those scenes are fully expanded yet. I want to get a little bit more of this basic structuring and plotting stuff figured out, and then go back and expand it with the revisions. I figured that quickens the pace up a little bit, so I'm testing out a little bit of a different outlining style, we'll say, compared to Silent Rain trilogy. It's going well so far, not quite at 1,000 words in the abattoir so far, but definitely going quite well. I've only gotten a couple scenes in it written, actually. I just have most of part 1 of that one plotted out, so I can switch out of here now. It's been going great. Like I said, part 1 got organized. The plotting is currently ongoing. I've only written the 2 of the scenes. It's currently 11 right now, so I need to go through and finish some of that. And then I got to figure out how I'm going to plot part 2, which I'm really excited about. I think some of my favorite moments in this trilogy, some of the ones that I'm most excited to get to, some of the ones that I'm most excited to write when it comes to actually writing the books, are going to be in part 2 of this trilogy. Book 2 of this trilogy, especially part 2 of this specific outline, so I'm excited to figure out how some of that stuff is going to go. But yeah, that's where I'm falling on that. I should have most of this full outline, if not all of it, finished by the next time I come back for Fortnight on the Isle. Not 100% sure on that. I'm not going to commit to that, but I think I might be able to have that done. Probably won't be able to finish it as quickly as I finished Hermit of the Forest, but you never know, I could surprise myself. Even so, for blogs and reviews, not as many words this week, even compared to last week, because I had 0 words written for book reviews, mostly because I didn't actually read or finish any books, because I've been working on Lord of Chaos and Witchy Eye for all of October so far, and for like basically the whole second half of September before that. That's basically been the focus. Haven't had any reviews to write. I've written like maybe 100 reviews between the first, or 100 words between the first 2 quote-unquote reviews for the first 2 volumes of Monster, but writing full in-depth reviews for those individual volumes just felt like a weird task that I didn't feel like I was up to, especially since the first one hit in so many different ways that I'm like, I'm not going to be able to write a review without spending way more time than it's worth doing that. So I decided not to, and basically the same thing with the second volume. I'm like, I'm okay with individual manga volumes like this being more of a just quick update review type thing, and then more or less review the full body of work when I'm done. So probably come the end of volume 9, I'll write an actual full review for the manga, but for now I'm not really doing that. So for all intents and purposes, 0 words for the book reviews. I did, however, write 1,600 words for film reviews because I watched Joker 2 basically a couple of weeks ago, no, last week actually, which we will talk about a little bit later in this video. 1,600 words for that review is all that I really need to update in this section. Similar to the last Fortnight on the Isle as well, I want to briefly discuss some of the more back-end stuff that I've got going on both with the channel and the website. So basically website revamps, things like that going on. I would say that I've gotten a few major design updates done on the website, which I've been proud of, being able to get some custom font stuff done, where I'm finally more or less happy with how some of the font decisions look on the website as a whole. Obviously there's still some design choices that I've got to go and, you know, finalize and get a little bit better, a little bit more consistent to look just better, quite frankly. But the fact that I was able to get a custom font in there that matches more of what I tend to have on the channel at this point, between thumbnails and like even the banner up above me in this video, it looks a little bit more consistent with my quote-unquote brand, if you can call it that. So I'm happy with having made that decision. I updated the lock screen of the website as well. You know, the screen that says, hey, yeah, this website is down right now and I'm currently updating it, because I'm finally getting back around to doing some of that stuff. So the lock screen is a little bit more formal and appropriate and just better in my opinion. So I'm, you know, going through and doing some of this back end technical stuff with the website, and then also some stuff with the channel as well. There's not much more on the website specifically that I've gotten updated yet, but since I am finally circling back around to it, it's something that I'm excited about. But before I get all of the backlog done, at least on there, like video backlog and getting some of that stuff done, because it has been months since I've updated that, that's going to be quite the task. I do actually first need to go through and finish some back-end YouTube stuff. Speaking of some of the back-end YouTube stuff as well, that's also going pretty great. Channel and brand account stuff, back-end nonsense that none of you would even notice, but for me as the account holder I have been working on, is all done. Very soon we'll be updating all of the descriptions on these videos to be better, and also to be like, hey, yeah, the advertising the YouTube in the first line of the description, or the website in the first line of the description when the website's been down basically all year, is kind of dumb, but I've just been doing it anyway. So I need to update all of my descriptions to be a little bit more appropriate, and then also to be a little bit more consistent in the way that I want them to be between different channels and all that kind of stuff. So I got to work on some of that. I also need to do some updating of some of the playlists and whatnot on my channel here, so that there's a little bit more for people to pick through if they want something specific, like genre wise. I haven't really split genre playlists apart in this channel up to this point, so I feel like that's something that I want to do, which was motivated by a change that I made to the website like a year ago but haven't really followed through with. So that's something I need to get done. Like I said, I got to do all this back-end YouTube stuff, which is going to be the main focus for a little bit as far as some of these updates and stuff go, before it becomes a website thing. But once the back-end stuff here is done, then it'll be a website thing, and then I'll be finalizing basically both of them together. That will be something that happens eventually. Not sure how soon, not sure how long that kind of thing is going to take, but I'm getting to it finally for the first time in forever. Speaking as well on YouTube brand account stuff, seasonal productions stuff should be coming back around at some point. Things like the seasonal podcast, which I originally started to have like 7, 8 videos. I forget how many episodes me and Lane did for that on this channel, but seasonal productions is going to be its own channel at some point in the future. Not sure when that's going to come back in full, but I am planning to reboot that series with him, and when it does, it'll be on the Seasonal Productions channel rather than on this one. So that is something that I'm looking forward to, and kind of the same thing with a couple of other things that I've worked on. I do plan to bring a new series to the second channel, and then I do plan to reboot what was originally on this channel, a critical analysis, my video game review series, but that will be on the second channel when I do reboot that. That's been something that I've been wanting to do for literally 2.5 years at this point, continuing that, and I just never have. So I want to get back around to things like that. So I've been thinking of, you know, just improvements and other growth and stuff like that for the channel, other content to do. Like I said, a lot of back end stuff, getting the website done. So I'm just been feeling good and getting a lot of stuff done. Speaking of getting stuff done, I did do a lot of video work over the last couple weeks, and some of that was finalizing a lot of the videos that are coming out. So let's talk about the coming releases for this fortnight. On the main channel on the 15th, this Tuesday, will be episode 185 of the book binge, which I'm very excited about. You might remember several weeks back at this point me reviewing the book The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, which is one of my favorite books of the year so far. I have an interview with Benjamin Lyer himself coming out on Tuesday. That's what the video for the 15th is. Very excited for that one. It's nearly 2 hours long. Had a great discussion with him. I'm sure it could have gone longer as well. But that's definitely one of the videos I'm most looking forward to this year. This Thursday on the 17th will be the 4th Wheel of Time diary for Lord of Chaos here. So nothing really new there as far as Thursdays go. Next week on the 20th, so next Sunday, is going to be my review of Sutri by Cormac McCarthy, pushing through the last couple of these original McCarthy reviews that I have on the back burner, basically, that have been waiting to be done. So that will be coming out next week. I'm very excited for that. Next Tuesday on the 22nd will be my review for The West Passage, another debut book that I read pretty shortly after reading The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, though this one I didn't quite love as much, but it had a lot of great potential. The specifics of how I felt about it are in that review. That's really the only way that I can talk about it, is by telling you, hey, yeah, just watch that review because it's kind of complicated. So that comes out next Tuesday on the 22nd, and then next Thursday on the 24th is the 5th diary for Lord of Chaos, coming up on the end of the book. At that point, it'll only be a week away from finishing then, so we're coming up on the end of that. Be prepared for next year when there's going to be like 6, at least 5, maybe even 6 of the months of the year that are relegated to Wheel of Time diaries, as I push through a significant chunk of the series, getting more done in a year than I have in either the last 2 years that I've been reading the book, basically, which feels weird to say. And I say last 2 years, but it's only been like a year and a half that I've been actively reading it, so you know, technicalities, we'll push forward. For the second channel on the 18th and the 25th, the next couple Fridays, I'm supposed to have episodes 12 and 13 of the Kingdom Hearts 2 Let's Play going up. I'm not 100% sure if that will happen, because for the entirety of the last month, there's just been stuff in the way as far as Josh and I being able to record more of that series goes. About a month ago, my grandfather died, so I had a couple weeks there where I just couldn't / was not in the mood to be doing something like recording a Let's Play, so we didn't do any recording back then. I had videos basically backlogged and already uploaded to come out all the way through October 11th, which is when I'm currently recording this video, which means that at any point over the last month, we could have recorded something just for me to have extra videos, and it never really happened, with a couple weekends where I was not in the mood, and then a couple weekends where it was just a little bit too busy with video stuff. Like, I was so busy, I was working basically every second of like 2 weekends ago, if I'm not mistaken, just making videos, just recording and editing videos. So that took a lot of my time. And then, of course, Hurricane Helene came through and rolled through some crazy parts of the country. Josh lives in North Carolina. Fortunately, he was not in the areas that were hit the hardest, but he was still affected a little bit. His family was affected a little bit. So depending on what happens with the timing, there's a very good chance that we just won't be able to record this weekend either, like we weren't for the last 2 weekends, even though it would have been nice to be able to. There's just been too much going on in the world and our personal lives for that to happen. It's just been kind of a crazy storm of events. So there's the chance that we'll record this weekend, so that being either the day that you're seeing this or the day before that you're seeing this. But there's no proper guarantee on that. We've tentatively made it a plan to do so, but there's always the chance that something crops up. If we aren't able to record, that means there won't be any episode that comes out next Friday, so we'll see over the next couple weeks whether those episodes come out. But enough with rambling about the coming releases. Let's talk about entertainment talk. I did say earlier that I watched Joker 2, so Joker Folie à Deux with Lane last weekend. I'm going to be the fence sitter about this one because I don't think this movie was actually horrible. I think the general reception that it has online of just being this awful piece of garbage movie that completely ruins everything about the first one is a little bit out of sorts, I guess. I don't fully agree with that take. I kind of see where people are coming from, but I don't think it's awful. But even if it isn't awful, it's also not great. I think it's just conflicted with itself. I don't think it knew what it wanted to be. So some of the stuff in it was pretty good, but other stuff was not. I didn't think that the musical direction was a bad direction, actually. I kind of liked those aspects some of the most. I thought that that was some of the most compelling parts of it. It kind of split its focus on like two different storylines. One of those storylines was very compelling, basically the whole movie, except for like the very end. And then the other storyline was kind of hit or miss, just a little bit slower, a little bit more plotting and boring. It's a movie that I think I will appreciate more as time goes on, actually. Even though I don't particularly love it, I don't think it's a great movie. It's definitely no masterpiece like the first one was, but I don't think it's this terrible piece of garbage that everyone else thinks it is. So that's where I sit with Joker 2. On the video game front, since I played and finished Astrobot, what was that, last Fortnight on the Isle that I talked about that? Maybe it was the one before that, I don't properly remember. I decided that I was going to replay Astro's Playroom because it's been a few years since I did that. I wanted to record some new footage for, reasons I will talk about here very shortly, which I kind of already hinted at. Astro's Playroom is pretty short. It's way shorter than I remembered. Maybe that's just because I have Astrobot in context, which is a proper full game, whereas Astro's Playroom is kind of just like a tech demo for the PS5, all things considered. I got some of the extra bots and the final trophies that were like added in ahead of Astrobot's release in there. So I got all that done. I think it's great. These two games are really good. I actually hope that Astrobot becomes kind of a fixture sort of in Sony's library. It's actually great, and that team is like the only team that actually makes use of the PS5 controller to a degree that nobody else does, so I appreciate that, of course. So I hope that another one of these Astrobot games comes out. It seems like everyone loved this one, so I think it's a good chance that something like that happens. But as I mentioned earlier, I do want to talk very briefly again about rebooting the seasonal podcast and a critical analysis. The seasonal podcast on the Seasonal Productions channel, dates and confirmation on that, of course, like I said, to be determined. It is front of mind, though. Lane and I have talked about this on and off for a long time, especially since I never really wanted to discontinue that series. It just became a little bit more of a hassle than I think it was intended to be, and I have better ideas of how some of those shows on there would function and run. So I do want to reboot it, and since it would be on another channel, the videos on this channel would basically be unlisted, so still accessible as kind of a fixture. But then the actual reboot would be more like what it actually was destined to be, we'll say. So the first one was like a trial run. That's something that I do want to get to in the future. Hopefully sooner than later. We'll see what happens. Of course, it might get a little bit complicated to do something like that, given personal situations with me and Lane both, but most particularly with him. We'll talk about that someday in the future when it's a little bit more certain. The critical analysis, like I said, would go on the second channel, so King Crusoe 2 or King Crusoe the Second, however you want to type that into YouTube. It's also linked down below in the description. Not in full production quite yet, but I have decided that rather than just rebooting the series with new videos and then continuing on with the series over there and keeping the ones that are over on this channel here, I decided I'm probably going to end up unlisting the original A Critical Analysis videos here, and when I reboot the series over there, doing so with new versions of all of the videos, redoing all of the previous episodes in one form or another. That's something that I've been thinking about the last couple weeks really heavily. I was thinking about it before that as well. I've also had some discussions with a friend or two about this, at one point or two earlier in the year, most particularly Doombot. I talked with him about this at one point, and he was basically the one that said, yeah, just rewrite those videos. I'm down for it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I've been, just thinking about that for weeks, maybe even a couple months now at this point. I forget when it was we were talking about it, and I think I'm going to redo those videos. So Doom, if you're watching this, yeah, I plan to rewrite and remake all of those early videos. More on both of these series when basically when I can, when they're more in full swing and when they're actually coming close to being done. But critical analysis especially, I'm very, very excited to be rebooting and to be coming back to and to rewrite videos for. I did mention, like I said, that I'm going to rewrite previous videos. I'm not just going to re-release the old ones. I'm going to completely rewrite them and come at them from a different vantage. If, in one way or another, all of them are going to be covered again on the new series in one way or another, and I'm having fun brainstorming ideas on how to do that. I've already like monologued to myself an introduction for the very first one of those episodes for the reboot, and think I'm going to start writing on some of that stuff at some point. With less of these book reviews to be writing, I've had my mind on some other things that I want to write that to fill that kind of void. But I've been talking a long time. Let's briefly get into the music talk before I go. This video is going to be long, even though I thought it would be a little bit shorter. I apologize, but I say this basically every fortnight at this point. Let's talk about a few of the albums that released pretty recently, but which I missed and didn't talk about in previous episodes of this. So I didn't talk about the Amity Affliction re-releasing or releasing a new remixed version of Let the Ocean Take Me, an album that's one of their fixtures, like basically their classic album as far as the fan base is concerned. I didn't originally talk about this because I was like, well, okay, but why does this exist? It turns out, I guess the band doesn't own the original masters to the original version of the album, so they remixed it, remastered it, so that they would have the rights and re-released it. And I had never actually listened to the original version of the album in full, or if I did, it was several years ago and I didn't remember it. So I listened to it and had a great time. I see why a lot of the, we'll say, emo core community considers this a popular fixture, a classic of the metalcore genre. For sure, it was pretty good. The Black Dahlia Murder released a new album a couple weeks ago, Servitude. I thought it was okay. I was intrigued. Was it the Black Dahlia Murder who lost their previous vocalist a couple of years ago? I forget for sure. I remember listening to their last album a few years back and liking that quite a bit. I didn't particularly like Servitude. It was okay. Like I said, I don't think it's awful. It's just not really my thing, I would say. Vocals felt pretty one note on this one, so I wasn't necessarily super excited by it. I did finally circle back around to listening to Disembodied Tyrant's new EP called The Tower Part 1, which, well, let's just say the hype on this one isn't actually overblown. I think it's really great compared to like the Poetic Edda, which is also pretty good, but a little bit overhyped, where people are like, this is the best thing that's ever come out in metal ever. The Poetic Edda is not that good, but The Tower Part 1 is pretty much that good. It is a completely new dynamic for deathcore, and even like including Thal elements and stuff like that, more so than even the Poetic Edda is, where that one kind of felt like Lorna Shore's new era, the kind of blackened deathcore type of thing with a little bit of other stuff in there was mostly what that was doing. So it didn't fully work for me, whereas the Tower Part 1 was just interesting enough in new ways that I was like, yeah, this is really cool. A few singles came out over the last couple weeks that I do want to talk about, like Moths to Flames, one of my favorite metalcore bands of this decade so far, released a new single called Soul Exchange, which I'm not sure if this is like a B-side from their new album or what, but the song was pretty good. These guys are consistent as always. Probably my favorite deathcore band, Fit for an Autopsy, released a song called Lower Purpose, which is definitely the most classic Fit for an Autopsy sounding song of the three singles so far, so I enjoyed it for that. Acacia Ridge, not to be confused with the Acacia Strain, Acacia Ridge released a single called Obstruction, which was a very different sound than I thought it was. I don't know where I heard of this band before, but I did and was following them. So this new single came up in my Spotify feed. I was like, okay, I'll listen to that. Very cool, a lot of great ideas. It has a lot more clean vocals and melodies in there than I was anticipating. I think my brain was expecting a little bit more of the Acacia Strain type of deathcore stuff. That's not what this song was, but I liked it nonetheless. Ice Nine Kills released a new single called A Work of Art, which is just okay. I'm proud of these guys for having the song in the new Terrifier movie that's coming out, but the song's okay. I think the verses are mediocre. Some of the riffs are not what I would prefer them to be, a little bit more punk-like than the sort of metalcore style that I would prefer from them, but then everything else that wasn't surprising sounds exactly the same as the last two albums. And like, as much as I enjoy A Silver Scream, both the original one, most especially the original one, that's still a classic in my books, but even Welcome to Horrorwood, it just feels, the style feels a little played out, so I'm genuinely not sure how to feel about them moving forward. A work of art is okay, not really my thing at this point. Maybe it'll sound better on a full album or something, but otherwise it's just the same song as basically everything else they've released for the last 6 years, because A Silver Scream came out 6 years ago somehow. Dream Theater released a new single called Night Terror, and as somebody who isn't like super well versed in Dream Theater, I've listened to 2 of their albums in full. Whichever album was their 2019 album, I believe it was the one that got me a little bit more interested in prog metal as a genre. So I have Dream Theater basically to thank for me getting into bands like Periphery. So that's cool. I didn't particularly like their last album, which was, what, 2022 or something? Something about the end of the world or whatever the title was. I forget off the top of my head. That didn't really spark anything for me. But this is going to be their upcoming album, coming up in February, I guess, with Mike Portnoy back on drums, which is pretty cool, but also pretty conflicting in equal measure. I'm not here to comment about that because I'm not invested enough with the band to really care that much. But the new single was good. I enjoyed it. Something that to get me excited for the new album, I guess. I should actually go back and listen to Dream Theater's full discography at some point, but when they have 15 albums at this point and like all of them are an hour or more long, it's like, man, that's a big commitment to do, but one of these days I should actually do that. A couple of albums came out over the last couple weeks. First off, Alt, spelt ALLT, released an album called From the New World, which was pretty good. I'm not somebody who loves Thal music. It's okay, it's got some interesting stuff, but I feel most of it just kind of plays itself out after a couple of songs, so full albums of this style tend to feel pretty one note. From the New World actually was interesting throughout. I felt the entire album warranted its existence. It didn't feel super repetitive or boring, so I really got to give these guys props for being able to achieve that. So that was a good album. And then Vicious Rain, a band that has released like, what, 6 or 7 singles over the last year or two. They finally released their debut album, There Is Beauty in Letting Go, an album that I haven't listened to in full yet, but all of the singles are good, at least all of the ones that I listened to. I think I listened to the first 5 singles, maybe just 4, I forget off the top of my head. But all the singles that I listened to were pretty good, showed a lot of promise. There Is Beauty in Letting Go is out now, and I'm very excited to listen to that very soon. Probably here not long after I'm done recording this video, because I have my laundry to go finish doing. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. Like I said, sorry for it being so long. Again, all of these videos seem to turn out being that way when I don't intend for them to do so when I set off to record them. But I had a good time. It's been a good fortnight. I'm feeling good, been productive. I'm hoping to keep up that role for the rest of October. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did, like I said, I'll be back on Tuesday with that Author Talks video with Benjamin Lyer. I'm very excited for you guys to have access to that one. I hope that you guys are excited to watch it. I'll be back then. I hope to see you there.